So unrealistic. Imagine believing I would marry him. She laughed after I proposed in front of her friends. I said, "You're right," then left the restaurant and packed everything I owned while she was still out with them. She returned to an empty apartment and a single text. Imagine thinking I'd stay. 1 week later, she showed up at my door in tears. Hey viewers, before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want more stories like this. Thank you. The ring box felt as if it weighed 1,000 pounds in my pocket. My heart wasn't just beating, it was racing, a mix of hope and nerves pounding against my ribs. I had planned this moment for months. I saved for the ring she casually pointed out in a boutique window. I chose this restaurant, the Celadon, because it was where we had our first meaningful date. I even coordinated with the waiter to bring out her favorite champagne at the perfect time. That moment had arrived. Across the table, Chloe was leading the conversation, her laughter sharp and bright as she finished a story about embarrassing an intern at her marketing firm. Her two closest friends, Jenna and Priya, matched her expressions perfectly, like a rehearsed audience. I took a slow breath. This was it. The restaurant noise faded into the background. "Chloe," I said, relieved that my voice stayed steady. She paused mid-sip of her drink and raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "What's up, babe? You look constipated." Jenna laughed under her breath. I stood up, my chair scraping lightly against the tile, and walked to her side of the table. All three women looked up at me. Jenna and Priya smiled with curiosity. Chloe's expression was more amused than warm. I lowered myself onto one knee, the cold floor pressing through my dress pants. I pulled out the ring box, my hand suddenly unsteady. Click. The box opened, and the diamond caught the soft overhead light. I could see my own anxious reflection in it. "Chloe Marie Evans," I began, the practiced words returning. "For 3 years, you've been the most exciting part of my life. You make every day unpredictable." Her reaction wasn't a joyful gasp, it was pure shock. Her smirk froze, then shifted. She covered her mouth, not to stop tears, but to hide a laugh that was already forming. Her eyes moved from the ring to Jenna, then to Priya. A loud, empty laugh slipped out. "You're serious?" she asked, loud enough for the nearby table to look over. The steady rhythm in my chest broke into something uneven and sickening. "Of course I'm serious. I love you. I want to spend my life with you." She dropped her hand and leaned back as if the ring itself offended her. Turning to Jenna, she spoke as if narrating a joke. "Can you believe this?" It wasn't directed at me. It was a performance. "Mark, oh Mark, so delusional." The word landed hard. Delusional. Priya shifted uncomfortably and stared at her plate. Jenna leaned forward, clearly entertained. Chloe looked back at me, but not like someone looking at a waiter who brought the wrong order. "Imagine thinking," she said slowly, emphasizing every word, "that I'd actually marry him." The way she said him made it sound disposable.
I tried to speak, but she waved me off. "No, listen, it's sweet. The stable engineer thing, the reliable meal prep. The security is cute, honestly." She tilted her head. "But marriage to you? My life would be settled. I'd be bored by 30. I'm meant for excitement, for experiences, not for this." She gestured vaguely at me, still kneeling, the ring box now feeling dangerous in my hand. The humiliation crept upward, burning my ears. I noticed the pity in Priya's eyes and the open satisfaction in Jenna's. Other diners pretended not to stare, but most clearly I saw Chloe, not the woman I thought I loved, but someone enjoying cruelty for attention. The floor beneath my knee felt cold in a way that reached deeper. My heart didn't break loudly, it fractured quietly inside. The warmth of hope vanished, replaced by sharp clarity. Everything became clear. I moved carefully. The frantic pounding was gone, replaced by silence. I closed the ring box. The click echoed. I stood up, feeling older than I had moments before. I pulled out my wallet, calculated my portion of the bill, added a generous tip, and placed it beside her untouched plate. "You're absolutely right," I said calmly. "My mistake." I didn't look at Jenna or Priya. I didn't scan the room. I didn't look at Chloe, whose confident expression was starting to crack. I turned and walked toward the exit. I didn't rush. I walked with purpose, like someone who had just found a way out. I heard my name behind me, but it wasn't regret or concern. It sounded like someone losing control of a scene. I stepped outside into the cool night air. One clear thought replaced everything else. Go home. Remove yourself. The drive back was silent. No music, no outburst, just familiar streets and focused movement. The pain was there, waiting, but I stayed on task. The apartment, chosen for its look, was mostly paid for by me. I handled the furniture, the repairs, the upkeep. It once felt like a shared home. Now it was just a place. I changed into old jeans and a nondescript t-shirt. This wasn't emotional, it was work. In the living room, I boxed my books without reading titles. I packed my records and the turntables separately, carefully. I felt detached, efficient. In the bedroom, I took my clothes, shoes, and winter gear. I left the expensive sweater she bought me, the one I never liked. I left anything that smelled like shared time. From my nightstand, I took my grandfather's watch, my passport, and important documents. I left the framed beach photo. I paused only once at the office corner. Inside a locked firebox were the receipts for the ring, brochures for a future lake house, and a printed list of honeymoon ideas. I didn't open it. I placed everything into a single crate. I planned to destroy it later. The physical effort helped keep me steady. Tape tearing across cardboard, the flat thump of boxes stacking. I moved like a ghost, carefully removing every trace of myself. I took my high-quality kitchen knives, the ones I used to cook meals she posted on Instagram. I left the bright non-stick pans she brought because they looked cute. I took my toolbox. I left the furniture. It was all contaminated now. A stage set for a production that was officially finished.
3 hours. That's how long it took to compress my life in that apartment into a clean stack of boxes and 2 suitcases by the door. The space looked strange, uneven, stripped down, but not empty in a meaningful way, more like the aftermath of a rushed move. I did one final check. Bathroom, my razor, toothbrush, the expensive cologne she claimed to love. I left the matching towels. Then I sat on a bar stool at the kitchen island, the same spot where I'd eaten countless quiet breakfasts while she slept. I pulled out my phone. Her contact photo, laughing, head tilted back, stared at me. I didn't block her yet. I typed one sentence. It wasn't emotional or bitter, just factual, a final echo of what she had already decided. Imagine thinking I'd stay. I sent it and watched it deliver. Only then did I open my settings and block her number. I went through every social app. Block, block, block. This wasn't anger, it was procedure, cutting off a compromised line. I ordered a rideshare van. The driver didn't ask questions. We loaded everything in 10 quiet minutes. As I drove my own car, the van following behind, I didn't look back at the building. I was already finished with it. My best friend, David, opened his door at 11:30 p.m., holding a baby monitor. One look at my face, the idling van, the boxes, and he stepped aside. Guest room's clear. Baby's been down for an hour, so keep it quiet. No questions. That's real friendship. Around 2 a.m., the wall finally collapsed. In the dark stillness of his spare room, the pain caught up. It was silent but overwhelming. Shaking hands, tight chest, hot, humiliating tears soaking into a borrowed pillow. I didn't resist it. I let it happen. I allowed myself one night of complete collapse. The next morning, David's wife, Sarah, handed me coffee. Her expression was gentle. "She's an idiot, Mark," she said plainly, resting a hand on my shoulder. "A cruel, shallow idiot." I nodded. The emptiness returned, but the clarity followed close behind. "I know, I just didn't see it." "You saw what you wanted," David said as he walked in. Last night, she showed you exactly who she is. Believe that. I did. Over the next week, I operated on facts. I called the landlord and explained everything without emotion. I paid the penalty to break the lease, wired my share, and emailed confirmation with instructions to forward it to the remaining tenant. My obligations were finished. I stayed off her social media. I muted or unfollowed anyone closely tied to her. Still, information leaks. 3 days later, a neutral mutual friend, Ben, texted, "Hey man, heard some wild stuff. You okay?" "I'm fine. Thanks for checking in." "She's telling people you had some kind of breakdown and just left, but my cousin's girlfriend was at the Celadon that night, 2 tables over. Her version doesn't match." "I'm sure it doesn't." "Just saying, the story isn't holding. People are talking." I didn't respond. I didn't need the story corrected. I just needed distance. A few days later, scrolling absent-mindedly through David's Instagram, I deleted my own apps. Right before I did, I saw a photo. Rooftop bar, group shot, and there was Chloe, front and center, wrapped around a guy named Leo. Leo worked in brand partnerships and was known at the gym for neon sneakers and constant talk about side hustles. Her smile was wide, almost forced, her eyes buzzing with energy. The caption read, "Vibes are immaculate with the crew, living life." The consequence train had arrived, shiny, empty, perfectly timed. On day 7, while finalizing the lease for a small, clean, one-bedroom apartment, I made a tactical mistake. I had to unblock her number briefly to authorize the transfer of a utilities deposit from our shared account. The block was lifted for less than 2 minutes when my phone lit up. Not a text, a voicemail. I hesitated. This was the first test. I played it on speaker, leaning back in the stiff chair of the rental office. Her voice filled the plain room, thin, unstable, confused, edging toward anger. No tears yet. "Mark, hey, it's Chloe. This is ridiculous. You need to come get the rest of your stuff. I'm not a storage unit. You can't just disappear. We need to talk about the lease. The landlord's being weird. Call me back. This is so immature."
Click. The message was revealing. No apology, no accountability, just disbelief that consequences existed without her supervision. I smiled for the first time in a week. It wasn't warm. It was measured. The look of someone who sees the board clearly. I deleted the voicemail, reblocked the number, signed my new lease. The silence that followed wasn't empty anymore. It had purpose. My new apartment was small, bright, freshly painted, a clean slate. I began rebuilding, not out of spite, not to prove anything, but because the person I was had been dismantled, and something stronger needed to take his place. I went to the gym at 6 a.m., not for appearances, for structure. Lift, lower, repeat. Progress was clear. I found a therapist, Dr. Vance, direct and practical. In her office, I talked about more than Chloe. I talked about why I confused approval with love, why being useful felt like being valued. Work became an anchor, timelines, calculations, systems that followed rules. I reconnected with friends from before her, the ones she labeled boring. We drank cheap beer, talked sports and projects, and nothing needed decoding. I brought one comfortable chair and placed it by the window. On Saturday mornings, I sat there with coffee and listened to the city wake up. It took weeks to recognize the feeling. Peace. The conflict, however, was happening elsewhere. First attempt, logic. A text from an unknown number. "Mark, it's Chloe. We need to handle this like adults. The landlord is threatening legal action. You're responsible for half the fee. I have paperwork. Let's meet and resolve this rationally. This avoidance is childish." I stared at it. The nerve was impressive. The legal action was the fee I'd already paid and documented. Either she was lying or hadn't bothered to check her email. I didn't argue. I opened my banking app, found the transaction, took a screenshot, and sent it back with one line. Settled. April 12th. See attached.
Then I blocked the number. Second attempt, emotion. A late-night call, another new number. I answered without speaking. Mark? Her voice was thick, unstable. The tone had shifted from confidence to distress. Leo, the guy I've been seeing, he's nothing like you. He borrowed $500 for a sure thing and disappeared. My friends are acting strange. Even Jenna said I might have gone too far. I stayed silent. Each sentence was carefully assembled, tested. She was offering regret in pieces, waiting to see if I would respond. She kept talking, filling the space I refused to occupy.
I miss our routine. Coming home to dinner already started, knowing the bills were handled. It was stable. The same word she once used as an insult was now spoken like praise. Can we just talk? Coffee. No pressure. I think I made a huge mistake. The appeal hung there. The former version of me would have given in. That version heard someone needing help. The current version heard a customer who returned a product, realized the replacement didn't work, and wanted to check if the warranty was still active. I've moved my things and closed out the lease, I said, my voice steady, flat. There's nothing to discuss. Mark, please. I ended the call and blocked the number. I felt no anger, just a mild sense of discomfort, like touching something unpleasant. The consequences didn't arrive loudly. They unfolded slowly and publicly. I heard pieces of it through Ben, who heard it from his cousin's girlfriend, who followed it all online. Leo, the good vibes guy, hadn't just disappeared on Chloe. He'd been seeing 3 women at the same time. They discovered each other through overlapping Instagram stories. What followed was a very public confrontation in the comments of one of his posts, complete with Chloe's angry, misspelled replies, screenshotted and shared across their circle. The perfect image collapsed. What had once been immaculate vibes became a visible mess. Her behavior toward me was now being reconsidered in light of her own very public embarrassment. The story had shifted completely. That seemed to be the tipping point. Attempt 3 came as direct anger, doorstep desperation. I was cooking dinner, simple aglio e olio, when the building buzzer sounded. I wasn't expecting anyone. I pressed the intercom. Hello? Mark, it's me. Let me in. Her voice was rough, stripped of polish. It wasn't a request, it was an order. I didn't respond. I released the button. A moment later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. The buzzer sounded again, long and continuous. I sighed and went downstairs, not to let her in, but to finish this. I opened the interior door to the lobby. She stood on the other side of the security glass, barely resembling the woman from the restaurant. Her hair was tied back loosely, her eyes red and swollen. She wore yoga pants and a stained sweatshirt. She looked worn down. When she saw me, she pressed her hands against the glass. "Open the door, Mark. We need to talk. Now." I stayed where I was, arms crossed. "Say what you need to say." "Let me in," she snapped, her voice breaking. "You have to. Look what you did. You left and ruined everything." I said nothing. "You left me with the full rent and the bills. Leo drained my Venmo. My friends won't call me back. Jenna said I create drama." The words spilled out, piling blame onto me. "This is your fault. If you hadn't done that, made that scene at the restaurant, none of this would have happened." I finally spoke, calmly. "I proposed. You said no. That's what happened." "You embarrassed me," she yelled, her fists clenched against the glass. "You put me on the spot. What was I supposed to do?" I replied, "You could have said no." The simplicity of it settled between us. You didn't need to perform. She stared at me, breathing hard. The victim act started to crack under my refusal to react. What was underneath began to show. "You were never enough," she said, the words sharp and unfiltered. "You were a placeholder,
something comfortable until I found better. I did you a favor by staying with you. You're boring, predictable, and you'll die alone." There it was, clear and final. I didn't react. Instead, I felt an unexpected sense of relief. She had confirmed everything I needed to know. I nodded once. "Okay." Then I turned and walked back toward the stairs. "Mark!" she screamed, her voice distorted by the glass. "Mark, come back!" I didn't turn around. I returned to my quiet apartment, to the smell of garlic and warm oil, to my single chair by the window. I served my pasta, sat down, and ate in complete silence. The buzzer sounded once more, short, angry, and then went quiet for good.